The splash came before the scream. 1 second, my daughter was standing on that boat, defending herself. The next she was gone, swallowed by cold, silent water. They called it an accident. I called it what it was. And they had no idea my brother was watching. My name is Charles Whitmore. I am 67 years old. And this is the story of the day I almost lost my daughter, and the mistake her in-laws made when they thought no one would fight back. Welcome to my YouTube channel Moral Echoes, where silence speaks. The family of my son-in-law pushed my daughter into the lake, but they didn't know my brother. As told by Charles Whitmore, 67 years old. I am Charles Whitmore. I am 67 years old, and I have lived long enough to know that danger doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it wears pearls. Sometimes it pours you wine. Sometimes it calls you family. The day they pushed my daughter into that lake, the sky was a soft blue, the kind painters try to capture and never quite do. The water was still, so still it reflected the clouds like a perfect mirror. But mirrors don't just reflect beauty. They reflect truth. And the truth that day nearly cost me my child. They thought they could get away with it. They didn't know my brother. A father's instinct. When you reach my age, 67 years old, you learn to listen to your instincts. Mine were sharpened by loss. I lost my wife, Margaret, 21 years ago to cancer. She was the calm in my storm, the warmth in our home. When she passed, the house felt too large, too empty, but I still had Emily. She was 11 when her mother died. That night she crawled into my bed and whispered, "It's just us now, Dad." And I promised her something. I will always protect you. I didn't know how many ways that promise would be tested. Emily grew into a kind, intelligent, fiercely compassionate woman. She became a children's therapist because, in her words, kids deserve someone who listens. She always had a soft heart. And soft hearts in a hard world need guarding. The first warning signs. When Emily introduced me to Daniel, I tried to welcome him without prejudice. He was polished, well-spoken, came from money. "Dad," Emily had said, smiling nervously, "his family is just very involved." Involved. That word clung to me. I met his parents, Harold and Cynthia, at an upscale restaurant in the city. Harold had the booming confidence of a man who'd never been told no. Cynthia's eyes scanned everything like she was pricing it, including my daughter. "So you work with troubled children?" Cynthia asked Emily, her voice coated in politeness. "I work with children who need support," Emily corrected gently. "How charitable," Cynthia replied. I watched Daniel during that exchange. He didn't speak. That was the first crack. The lake house invitation. 2 months ago, we were invited to their lake house to celebrate Harold's largest acquisition yet. It was phrased as a joyful family gathering. But Emily's voice over the phone betrayed something else. "Will you come, Dad?" she asked quietly. I wouldn't miss it. My younger brother, Tom, was staying with me that week. He's 64, retired detective, broad shoulders, steady eyes, and the quiet patience of a man who has seen the worst humanity has to offer. "Lake house, huh?" he said. "Sounds fancy." "Sounds tense," I replied. He studied my face. "You've got that look." "What look?" "The one you get when you think something's wrong." He paused. "Mind if I come?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. That decision saved my daughter's life. Beneath the surface, the lake house was grand, perched above crystal blue water, with private docks and expensive speedboats gleaming in the sun. But grandeur doesn't equal goodness. Inside, the air felt heavy. Cynthia made comments about Emily's clothing. Harold made remarks about her financial inefficiencies. Daniel stayed quiet, trapped between loyalty and fear. At dinner, Harold said, Daniel tells me you still insist on keeping separate financial records. Emily's fork paused midair. I believe in independence, she replied calmly. Cynthia smiled tightly. Independence is overrated in marriage. I felt Tom shift beside me. Later that night, he said softly, they don't respect her. I know, I said. What are you going to do? I'm waiting. For what? For proof. The boat ride. The next afternoon, Harold insisted we take the boat out. Nothing like open water to celebrate success, he declared. The lake was calm, too calm. I remember thinking how peaceful it looked. We were halfway across when the conversation turned sour. Harold criticized Emily's student loans. Cynthia suggested she quit her job. Daniel said nothing. Emily stood up, frustrated. I'm not a burden, she said, her voice trembling but strong. The boat rocked slightly. Sit down, Cynthia snapped. I won't be spoken to like this. And then it happened. Cynthia grabbed her arm. Not gently. Emily pulled back. Harold cut the engine abruptly, the boat jerking. And Cynthia shoved her. There is a distinct difference between a stumble and a push. I saw it. Tom saw it. Daniel saw it. Emily fell backward over the railing. The splash echoed like a gunshot. The cold water. Why, I screamed. At 67 years old, I am not as fast as I once was. My knees protested as I rushed forward. Tom didn't hesitate. He dove in. The water swallowed him. Daniel stood frozen. Cynthia gasped theatrically. Oh my God, she lost her balance. Liar, I whispered. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then Tom surfaced, holding Emily. She was conscious but struggling, coughing violently. We pulled them aboard. Emily clung to me, shivering. She pushed me, she whispered. My heart broke and hardened at the same time. They didn't know my brother. Tom climbed into the boat, water streaming from his clothes. His face was calm, but his eyes were steel. You pushed her, he said quietly to Cynthia. That's absurd, she snapped. Tom removed his watch. You see this, he said. It records audio. Harold's face paled. I turned it on before we left the dock. Silence. I had a feeling, Tom continued, and now I have evidence. Cynthia's composure cracked. She's ruining my son's life, she shouted, with her debt and defiance. Daniel flinched. Tom stepped closer. You just admitted motive. Harold tried to regain control. Let's not overreact. Tom cut him off. I spent 30 years as a detective. I know assault when I see it. For the first time, Harold had nothing to say. The confession. Back at the house, Tom replayed the recording. Cynthia's voice. The scuffle. The splash. Her angry outburst afterward. Then the fatal line. I didn't think she'd fall that hard. Confession. The police arrived within the hour. Cynthia was arrested. Harold's bluster evaporated under legal reality. Daniel sat on the steps, staring at his hands like they no longer belonged to him. A marriage unraveled. Emily stayed with me afterward. She woke from nightmares some nights. I would sit beside her like I did when she was little. I failed you, Daniel told her weeks later when he came to our house. You didn't push me, she said quietly. But I didn't stop it. That hurt him more than anything else. He filed for divorce shortly after. I need to learn courage, he told me before leaving. I didn't hate him, but I could never fully trust him. Healing. Months passed. The legal case concluded with Cynthia convicted of aggravated assault. Harold's reputation crumbled. Emily returned to her work. Stronger, Wiser. One afternoon, we visited a quiet public lake near our town. She stood at the water's edge. "Does it scare you?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, it reminds me that I survived." I felt tears sting my aging eyes. At 67 years old, I have learned this. Evil often disguises itself as entitlement. Cruelty often hides behind respectability. And silence is the most dangerous accomplice of all. The moral. If there is one thing I want you to understand from my story, it is this. Never ignore small signs of disrespect. They grow. Never sacrifice your voice to keep someone else comfortable. And never underestimate the quiet strength of someone who loves you. My brother didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply watched. He recorded. He acted. Family is not about wealth. It is not about status. Family is who dives into cold water without thinking. Family is who stands between you and harm. Family is who tells the truth when lies try to drown it. They thought they could silence my daughter. They thought the lake would wash away what happened. But they didn't know my brother. And they didn't understand a father's promise. I am Charles Whitmore. I am 67 years old. And I kept my promise.